Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Amie Howard Art. If you're new here, I'm Amie and this channel is home to all things coloured pencil. Today I'm bringing you a review of the Arteza Expert Colored Pencils. If you follow me on social media, you will have seen me using these to create today's time-lapse piece, and I know an absolute ton of you had so many questions about these pencils, so this review and demo will hopefully cover that for you. I want to start this by saying that this is not sponsored in absolutely any way. I bought this set of pencils with my own money from Amazon for just a touch over £25, and the opinions that I'm going to give in this review are completely my own based on my experience whilst I was drawing this piece. So let's start with the basics of these pencils and let's look at that colour range. With this set you get 72 different shades to choose from, and immediately upon opening these I thought, holy hell, these are bright. What on earth am I going to draw with these? Also, side note, I did have footage of when I very first opened these and they were all long, shiny and new, but that footage has disappeared somewhere, never to be seen again, so I refilmed what the pencil looked like after they've had a good few hours use. The first thing I did with these pencils is sharpen them, and I swatched them out onto my usual drawing paper, which is the Fabriano Artistico for those interested, and this gave me my first impressions of coverage, what they feel like, and also how they sharpen. So the pencils sharpen to a really super fine point, and they actually hold that point surprisingly well, which I was completely amazed by. Usually cheaper brands crumble like anything, like the Prismacolors, and they also wear down pretty quickly, but these weren't like that at all, which was actually quite refreshing. And I sharpened these using the Derwent Super Point Mini, and I had absolutely no problems whatsoever. No breakage, nothing. So that immediately won these pencils points, excuse the pun, with me. My first impressions with how they go down on the paper, well, that was a little bit different because I'm used to using polychromos pencils and these Arteza ones felt so waxy compared to those, and it took me a couple of swatches to actually get used to them. And I'll admit that that did put me off a little bit, but they were so immensely pigmented when putting down the colour that I just wanted to use them all, and I just wanted to see all of the pretty colours that the set had. The pencils themselves feel really sturdy, the casing is nice and smooth and easy to hold. It's pretty much just like any other pencil, and each pencil within the Arteza range has its own colour coordinated barrel, and it has the little Arteza logo stamped in silver onto the centre of the pencil. Further down the pencil is the Expert, the range of this brand of pencil, and there are two silver bands on the end, and that just makes these pencils look pretty snazzy. On the opposite side we have the colour name, the number and the light fastness rating, so that information is all there on the pencil, which is actually really handy. One thing which I did really love about these pencils were the colour names, and looking through the set actually made me feel really hungry because there were names like Peaches and Cream, Pink Macaroon, Blueberry. They all just sounded so yummy, and I noticed as well that all of the colour names are all sort of natural sounding as well as food, but with others being things like Purple Iris, Turmeric, Coyote, they're all pretty solid names. My one qualm with these names is that they don't follow the same guides or patterns as my other sets of pencils. An example being the browns. I'm used to walnut brown, dark sepia, nougat from the polychromos range, whereas these browns were espresso and dark chocolate, and that just made it a little bit confusing for me at first because, as I said, I use polychromos, and that's how my brain picks colours. It picks the colours with that brand in mind. So I look at a brown and I think I'm going to need walnut brown for that. Whereas when I was picking colours from my reference for this time lapse, my brain was picking out polychromos colours, and when it came to actually picking from this set, I was a little bit confused about that. But that's just how my brain was working and how I like to pick colours. Now, the light fastness rating is where this gets a little confusing, as people have been given conflicting information in this area, and Arteza uses a plus symbol at the end of their pencils to indicate the light fastness. And if you're like me and used to using polychromos, you'll think that more stars equals a higher rating, and that's what I immediately thought when looking at these. I went through the set and I was looking at the little pluses on the end, and I was quite surprised with how many were 3 stars. However, from doing a little bit of research and doing a little bit of looking around, there are some people that say that 1 plus is the highest, and there are others saying that 3 pluses is the highest. So everything is a little bit conflicting when it comes to the light fastness rating with this. My opinion on this is that they're a cheaper brand of pencil. Personally, I'm not going to trust the light fastness rating of these pencils over that of my more expensive ones. If you have any knowledge about pigments and that kind of thing, you'll know that more pigment means more expensive supplies, as pigments cost a whole load of monies. More pigment means that the colour is more stable, so the fact that these pencils are so cheap makes me question that light fastness. And what I would suggest doing is your own light fastness tests. So if you're really not sure whether to sell work made with these pencils or not, and you're not sure whether you should actually be using them, I would suggest to swatch the colours down and put them in a bright sunny window for 3 to 6 months and see the results and see whether or not they fade compared to a more controlled test in a darker environment. So that's the pleasantries of these pencils out the way, so let's see them in action with my Sun Conure piece. So as I said, when I first opened this tin, I wondered what on earth I could draw, as there didn't seem to be that many earthy tones that would suit pet portrait work or something similar, which is what I usually do. So I decided to step right out of my comfort zone, as I was already kind of out of it with these pencils anyway, and I kind of looked at the colours and the orange and the yellows really jumped out at me, so I decided to go with something involving those colours. And I love drawing birds, so I had a look to see what I could find, and lo and behold, I found this amazing reference image on Wildlife Reference Photos, and I just knew that it would be the perfect fit for these pencils. And also with it being a group of 5 birds as well, I've never really tackled multiple wildlife in one scene, so it was kind of a win-win all round for me. So I was using new pencils, I was using colours that I wasn't used to using, and also the kind of composition was new to me as well. Unfortunately, the first bit of the footage of these birds has disappeared with the other lot of the tin opening, so you don't get to see me struggle when first using these, which I was kind of really annoyed about, because when I first started layering and putting down colour, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. The texture of the pencils was really confusing me, but as with all new materials, once you've used them for an hour or so, you start to get a feel for them, and I actually managed to calm myself down and focus on what I was doing. The pencils, when first layering them, go down in exactly the same way as Prismacolors. They're soft, they're creamy, they're waxy, and they go down with little effort or pressure from my hand at all. The pigment really grabs the paper and it ends up being really super bright. At the beginning of my piece here is where I kind of have to niggle at these pencils in terms of colour. The Ivory pencil included in this set is really yellow. It's not like other Ivory pencils I've used where it's more of like an off-white. This Ivory from the Arteza is full-on cream. It's not even light, it's just yellow basically, and it wasn't what I was expecting when layering it down, because I like to start off with super light layers. Like I tend to always use a warm grey one from the Polychromos, that kind of lightness, and this colour was just too dark for me to start, but it is one of the lightest pencils in the bunch, so I kind of just had to deal with it and make it work. So what I actually did was just layer down some of the Ivory and then work over some white just to lighten it a little bit. Although the colours and the tones are great in this set, I think more are needed to get an overall rounded palette of brights and neutrals, because the neutrals within this set are seriously lacking. This is just my opinion. Others may love the colours included in this set, but for me personally, I need more neutrals. I need a lot more browns, I need a lot more greys, and I need a lot more of those sort of muted yellows and not really, really bright yellows. I will also just mention that these pencils aren't currently available open stock, so if you run out of one pencil, you're gonna have to buy a whole new tin to replace just that one colour. This could be a big problem for those that like to use one brand within a piece, and I came seriously close to using up a few of mine just in this one piece. That aside, as I said earlier, the wear of these pencils is great, and this is where they really differ from the Prismacolor. Prismacolor pencils, in my experience, wear down extremely quickly, and I can constantly sharpen them. And the Arteza Expert pencils maintain a sharp point for so much longer, and this is where I can compare them to the Pablo pencils. So Caran d'Ache Pablo pencils have that soft but firm point, and they wear extremely well. And if you watched my live streams whilst I was drawing some of this, you'd have heard me say numerous times that the Arteza Expert pencils feel like a blend of Prismacolor and Pablo pencils, and that's because they sharpen really well and they wear really well. So although these pencils do have a good durability when it comes to lead and less time is actually spent sharpening, I still managed to work my way through a few of them fairly quickly, albeit not as quick as I would have worn through a Prismacolor pencil. I really enjoyed layering with these pencils so much. They blended together so well and nearly effortlessly. I used my usual blending and burnishing method of just using the pencils with this piece, and I was really happy with the way that that method actually worked. Because the pencils are really creamy and waxy, it's so easy to blend and layer the colour together. I hardly had to use my white to add a little burnishing, as it was all just happening right there in front of me. So usually I would put a couple of colours down and then I would burnish with a white pencil just to kind of blur them together and create a really unique tone. But with these, I didn't have to do that. It was just doing it for me, and it was a really great experience. The grain of the paper was pretty much eliminated after the first couple of layers, and that provided me with this really slick, smooth surface to build even more layers and details onto. And subsequent layers on this smoother surface actually held extremely well, and I was able to easily add about 12 or more layers before going in with detailing, and even those details went down really easily. I expected these pencils to get such a waxy build-up that it would become almost impossible to layer and add those final touches, but I could just keep going and going to my heart's content to really build depth within the piece. You can see from this time lapse just how well the pencils are going down and how much depth and detail I am actually able to build. On the subject of detail, as these pencils sharpen so well, I was able to get beautiful points, crisp lines, and all of those small details that I could possibly dream of, even on top of all of those waxy layers. I imagine that these pencils would blend exceptionally well with a solvent, and you could get so many more layers if you were to blend that way. But I didn't use a solvent with this piece because I wanted to see how well the pencils perform purely on their own, and I gotta say that I was completely impressed. Mixing colours with these pencils was again really easy because of how soft and smooth the pencils layer, and this was especially apparent when it came to the branch, as I really struggled to get a good colour match from the ones provided in the set. Again, the natural tones within this set are extremely limited, which was a little bit of a problem for me. But I actually picked out and layered 2 or 3 of the colours and blended with the white pencil to get the tone I was after, and the effect of that was actually pretty great. And I often like to create my own tones from a limited palette anyway, so that aspect of this drawing, although a little bit tedious at first, it actually turned out to be a lot of fun to try and create my own tone for that branch. So now I want to talk to you about some of the problems I encountered with these pencils, and the main one being the shine from the waxy build-up after numerous layers once I'd finished the piece. I expected this with them because they're a waxy pencil and they've behaved pretty much the same way as Prismacolors do, and I got a fair amount of wax bloom which was shiny as hell and a right problem when I was working under studio conditions with my bright lights and everything. I expect that under other conditions, perhaps in natural light, it probably wouldn't have been so much of a thorn in my side, but the wax bloom is easily eradicated, and I went through afterwards with a little bit of my Zest It solvent. I did a little bit of brush over and it just got rid of all of that shininess. It worked a treat. The wax bloom probably wouldn't be an issue if you're used to working with wax-based pencils as well, but as I use polychromos, which hardly get any wax bloom, I was just a little bit out of my comfort zone and I just didn't enjoy that aspect of working with these pencils. The other issue, as I've said before, is the colours available. Although I love the colour names and all of that jazz, the palette just isn't suited to what I would usually do. It's not suited to what I usually work on. I like to create wildlife portraits, often using a lot of greys, browns and creams, and those just aren't available within this set. There are too many bright, jazzy tones for my liking. Now that is absolutely nothing against the pencils, that's just my personal preference on colour palette, and if given the choice I would probably choose another brand with more neutral tones than these if I was creating something that had those neutral tones. If I was creating something that was really bright and vibrant, then I would hands down pick these pencils for that for sure. The final downside is that light fastness issue. I just wouldn't be comfortable selling any pieces made with these pencils because I personally can't guarantee the longevity of this piece to my customer. With other more expensive brands, I know that they're going to last and I can absolutely trust those. These pencils are new and they're very unfamiliar, and Arteza is a relatively new company, and it just wouldn't sit right with me if there's even a slight bit of doubt in my mind that this piece would fade after 4 or 5 years. So I wouldn't feel comfortable using these for something that I'm going to sell. And most cheaper art supplies tend not to be as light fast as more expensive brands anyway, so that's kind of a huge downside for me on these otherwise great pencils. With that being said though, the pencils apply exceptionally well and you can just see the results that I have managed to achieve with these supplies. I was absolutely blown away with what I was able to do, if I'm honest. I didn't have high hopes. I expected them to be a little bit like a Crayola pencil, like that really kind of cheap and nasty pencil. But these pencils really blew me and my expectations out of the water. Now I will be conducting my own light fastness tests on these just to see how much, if at all, that they do actually fade, because I would love to include some of these into my coloured pencil arsenal, and I would actually love to be able to sell my Sun Conure piece because I have had so many people interested in it. All in all, I think that these are a really great pencil. I had hardly any quarrels in terms of application. They really served me and my Sun Conures well. I really loved that aspect of the pencils. The piece I made from this is by far, I think, the best piece that I've done this year, so I really have to give Arteza huge props for that, because it's purely down to the way that the pencils handled and the way that I applied them, and I was really surprised by that and really blown away by the outcome of this piece. So that pretty much brings me to the end of my review. I hope I covered everything and have given you guys a little bit to think about if or anything that you are considering using this pencil maybe. If there's anything that I have missed or that you'd like to know more about, then feel free to pop a comment below. I always read the comments and I will reply if you have any queries about these pencils. I'd also love to hear about your experiences with using these pencils. If you've used them, do you like using them? Or if you don't use them, would you consider using them? Let me know that in the comments below as well. For those of you interested in perhaps purchasing these pencils, I have popped an affiliate link of where you can buy these beauties on Amazon. If you are interested, the affiliate link, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but I get a little percentage from the sale made from that, and it really does help out my channel. So if you are interested in purchasing them, then please use my affiliate link to do that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching this review, guys. If you liked it, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. And if you're new around here, why not hit that subscribe button and delve into all things coloured pencil. I post new videos every single Friday and I live stream on Sundays as well. But anyway guys, I will see you next week. Bye! With using these pencils, with using these pencils, with using these pencils, with using